Hello, everyone. This is Thor, and today we're going to be taking a look at the astrology chart of King Charles. I really want to see how is this, Harry and Meghan docuseries affecting him, and also this book drop that's about to happen on January 10th. As many of you are aware, Prince Harry is about to release this book called Spare. So, what I'm going to do today is we're going to take a look at what's currently happening in King Charles's life. And then, if I notice any type of personality traits, I'll also bring that up as well. For those of you that are new to my channel, be sure to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get all of my videos. I love doing videos on the royal family. I do monthly predictions, and I also do videos on celebrities. I've even done videos on cryptocurrencies. So make sure you check out all those other videos too if you find that you're having an interest in Vedic astrology. I do practice Vedic sidereal astrology for those of you that are new to the channel. It's the astrology from ancient India, so your sign may be different using Vedic astrology because they do calculate it differently and they use the sidereal zodiac. If you're interested in a private reading, make sure you check details down below. Those can be purchased on my website. And I do occasionally have discounts. So make sure you check that site regularly. All right, so let's go ahead and move along here. Before we take a look at King Charles' chart, I really want all of you to know that this is all alleged statements. I don't know exactly how King Charles, what he's thinking. So this is my interpretation of the astrological chart and astrological karma. All right, so let's take a look at the chart here. Let's pull that up. As many of you are aware, if you watched my last video, King Charles is a Cancer ascendant. And one thing I wanted to point out before we talk about really what's happening right now in King Charles's life is this placement of Saturn in the second house of Leo in King Charles's chart. Now, the idea of when Saturn is in the second house really represents our value system in life. So if you have any planets there, it's really going to be indicating who influenced your values and also, what kind of values you have. So Saturn is a very conservative planet. So it shows that King Charles is a stickler for tradition. He's somebody that is very conservative, even though when we saw a show like The Crown, it showed this idea that he wanted to modernize the monarchy. Deep down, his main concern is going to be to preserve the monarchy because he does want to preserve this age-old institution. So that's really what Saturn in the second house represents. So when we're talking about, what's going on in his life right now, always keep that in mind that his goal is really to preserve the institution of the monarchy. That's really going to be his main goal. And I do feel when I look at the chart, this idea of wanting to modernize the monarchy, this is definitely a chart that would indicate that, especially when we look at Mars in the fifth house here. Fifth house represents royalty. And he's got Mars there, which is the planet of innovation. So there's this idea of innovating things, but there's still this conservative values to it. Okay. So, Prince Harry's got to be careful because, you know, when somebody wants to preserve something that well and they have this much of conservative values, if you speak out too much against the monarchy and what it represents, this could be damaging to the relationship in that, there could be serious consequences if, he continues to really lambaste the monarchy. Because now King Charles, whether people like it or not, he's the head of the Church of England. He's the head of state. I mean, well, not I don't know if he's head of state, but he's head of the Church of England. And it's very important that he maintain a certain image. So if Prince Harry goes out there and, continually berates the monarchy, I think that just simply because of King Charles's this need to really preserve the monarchy, This could really cause a fracture in the relationship. All right, so let's clean that up. I wanted to really explain that to you all so you know a little bit of the worldview from what we can see in the astrological chart. This is the worldview of King Charles. All right, so what's going on right now? So what we look at in Vedic astrology, for those of you that are new, we do use this system called the Vimshatari Dasha system in Vedic astrology, which is the idea that you're going through different planetary periods. So there's certain periods of your life where there's certain planets that are highlighted, and the karma that's associated with that planet is really what's being felt and experienced at that given moment. So as of right now, King Charles, I'm so used to calling him Prince Charles from back in the day, but King Charles is in a period called Jupiter Mahadasha, which is quite a long period. It actually started back in 2013, but we're going to focus more in on the Mahadasha and Bhukti. The Bhukti is the sub period. So he's in a large period of Jupiter. Okay. And then he's in a sub period, which is called Venus. So we're really going to take a look at those two planets because that's really what's influencing his life. So when any of you look at your charts, I want you to be aware of your whole chart is always going to be operational. So your whole chart is always generally operating in your life, but during certain periods of your life, there's going to be certain planets. So in King Charles, this is being magnified. Okay. And then if we look at Venus, Venus is being magnified. So those are like, it's like if you take a microscope and you really zoom into that, that's what's really being influenced, or that's really what's influencing his life. Now, when you're going through when you're going through planetary periods, I want you to be aware of not only are you experiencing the literal effects of that planet, but you're experiencing also the emotional impact of that planet. So you're actually it's like your consciousness and your perception filters are also being influenced by the planet. So when we're talking about Mahadashas and Bhuktis, this is like what kind of glasses you're even seeing the world out of. So it's not really an objective reality. When we're looking at a birth chart, this is the world according to King Charles, really. This is really an intimate view of somebody, looking at their karma. So this Jupiter period, I wanted to point out the Jupiter Mahadasha, which is the larger period that he's in at the moment. You notice that Jupiter is the natural karaka of children in any horoscope. So that's what we usually look at if there's a client that asks about children and so forth. We usually want to look at the condition of Jupiter. Well, children are definitely going to be highlighted during this time in King Charles's life. And, lo and behold, what's happening? Well, he's got Prince Harry and Prince William. I mean, they're both going to be very much on his mind at the moment because of Jupiter. But this idea of Jupiter being in the sixth house, there's conflict and disagreement with a lot of the children, or not a lot of the children, with at least Prince Charles, there could be some disagreement. The sixth house can represent imbalance. So there's just this idea of disagreeing, and things are not working out with that child, maybe a problem, a child's becoming a problem or creating some sort of issues for you. So that's definitely very much indicated in the chart. So let's clean that up. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that Prince William's causing the issues, but there's some issues coming from the children there. What's also being activated in King Charles' chart is the ninth house. So if you think about this idea of King Charles becoming like the patriarch of the royal family, he's becoming the head of the household. That's what ninth house really is about. Ninth house it's different from the 10th house. The 10th house represents government, whereas the ninth house is more teachers, gurus, patriarchs, heads of family. That's more what the ninth house represents. And that's why it can represent father figures and gurus. So that's something. So he's become, essentially a father figure of the nation. So I want you to be aware of that. Now, because Jupiter's in the sixth house, even besides this idea of children, I want you to be aware of there are conflicts and there is the potential of health problems during this time. And I talked about this in my last video. Uh, some people had mentioned that around the time that the Queen passed away, they noticed that King Charles had swollen fingers, and there were some pictures that there was some issue there. So, there could be some underlying health issues there. And when Jupiter's in the sixth house, remember Jupiter expands whatever house it's in. So if Jupiter's in the sixth house, even though it's a good planet, it's expanding or multiplying the conditions of that house. So health and balance, well, that's being expanded and multiplied. However, I do want to say on the flip side, sixth house is the house of service. So he could render a lot of service to the nation, but also the world in a lot of ways during this Jupiter period. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Venus period as well. So if we take a look at Venus, because remember, that's the sub period he's in. The Venus Bhukti, that started in November of 2020. And then it is going to end July of 2023. Okay. So this is about 7 more months. He's really at the tail end of this Bhukti. And then when he's going to enter Sun Bhukti in July. Okay. So he's going to change Bhuktis. And we'll talk a little bit about what I see with the Sun Bhukti. All right. So let's take a look at what's going on with Venus. If we look in the chart, Venus is in the third house of the chart, and the third house can represent things like communications media. So I do feel like there is a focus on maintaining a good image in the media. And I know the royal family has a special relationship with the media in Britain. There's like this exclusive I don't know if they have this, it's a contract or something where the media gets to have access to them in exchange, because the country does essentially, I don't know if they still have, some of you can let me know in the comments, but the last time I was aware, there was some sort of tax or there was some sort of government money they did get. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But anyways, the idea was that in exchange for that, the media is going to have access to your family. Well, Venus is in the third house, so this does show he wants to have a really good relationship with the media. It also shows that he's really wanting to present a good image in the media. Okay. So that's the thing, is he's wanting to present this good image in the media, but he's also experiencing a lot of difficulty because of the Jupiter situation being in the sixth house. Let's clean up the chart a little bit. I did also want to bring up the idea of, if we look at King Charles's moon chart, one of the issues that I do see is, this is the moon chart. This is if we make the moon lagna. It's important to look at both of these, the D1 chart and your moon chart. Especially when you're over the age of 50, your moon chart becomes more powerful because all the planets in your chart reach full maturity. So, for example, Saturn matures at the age of 36, Rahu and Ketu mature at the age of 48. Well, so after 50, your moon sign will actually start to become a little more dominant. There's a little bit more of a strength there. Now, take a look at this idea of, when we look at the moon chart, Venus is in the sixth house. Again, when we see a lot of confluence, you got Venus in the sixth house, we got Jupiter in the sixth house. This is definitely not an easy period for King Charles. There's a lot of conflict. And like I said before, again, there could be some health issues there. So that's one of the things I'm a little worried about. There were some people, I saw some other psychics thinking that, at least there was speculation that King Charles might not, this is what I heard, a lot of people believe that King Charles might not be king for too long, and that Prince Charles might take over, sooner than we think. When I look at the chart, that's a possibility. I'm not going to make the prediction as, it's not ironclad in my opinion, but there is a possibility, just because when he enters this Sun period coming up, Sun is with K2 in the chart. So K2 can represent losses. And also we know that he's still in this period where there could be health issues. So that's definitely a concern, definitely a worry. But I would say there's an influence there, but I wouldn't say it's a for sure thing at all. Let's clean up the chart here. So at the moment, what I wanted you all to be aware of is Saturn. If we look at where transiting Saturn currently is in King Charles's chart, it's in the seventh house. So there's been a lot of focus on marriage, focus on contracts, deals, and seventh house is 10th from 10th, interestingly enough. So there's this idea of having this leadership thrust upon him right now. Well, many of you are aware, and I'm going to make a video about this really soon, before January 17th. But on January 17th, Saturn is finally going to be changing signs, and it's going to be going into the eighth house of Aquarius here. Okay. Because Saturn's been in the sign of Capricorn essentially, very briefly, it went out of the sign of Capricorn, but it's been in Capricorn essentially since January of 2020. So this has been a focus of a lot of the karma, is the seventh house. So let me clean this up a little bit. I want to explain what's going to happen, because this whole Saturn shift that we're going through on January 17th, it really is a big deal. And I do encourage all of you to really see where what areas Saturn's affecting, because no matter what Mahadasha and Bhukti you are in, Saturn is always going to be one of the major players in your chart, and it does indicate karmic destiny, and also karma we have to burn off. So it's not an easy, wherever it goes in our chart, it usually brings up challenges and lessons, and it's a very challenging type situations. So the eighth house, this is what we typically see when Saturn enters the eighth house. The eighth house, let me explain it for a moment. The eighth house is all about death and rebirth. It's all about, for example, things like sudden events, emergencies, traumatic situations. Those are all representative of the eighth house. So that's why it's one of the evil houses. So if we look at the Dashtana houses or the evil houses, it's 6, 8, and 12. Eighth house is like sudden things. Okay. So for example, if someone had a sudden, and I'm not saying this is happening with King Charles, I'm giving you the example. But if someone had a sudden health event, you know, that would be indicated by the eighth house, because it's sudden. It's something that's shocking and out of nowhere. Whereas the sixth house would represent more of an ongoing disease kind of condition, just to give you an idea of what the eighth house represents. So the eighth house is primarily sudden things that happen to us. Let's go back to the chart. So the idea is eighth house also represents secrets. Okay. I do feel, and you notice, there is no accident that this book that Prince Harry's about to release is going to be coming out on January 10th, and then Saturn's changing signs on January 17th. I feel like there may be some more shocking revelations that we might have not even learned about in the Harry and Meghan docuseries. Of course, I'm going to call these allegations. We don't really know for certain if these are going to be true or not, but eighth house represents secrets being exposed. So there is this idea of when Saturn is in the eighth house, Saturn, what it wants to do is it wants to contain things. So that's why it's considered actually a good thing when Saturn transits either the sixth house, the eighth house, or the 12th house, because Saturn's containing the damage or the losses associated with that negative house. So I feel like this month of January, even maybe February, because sometimes the transits don't necessarily happen the day of, there's something likely, some sort of emergency. This could be as a result of the book. It could be some sort of damage control mode that's going in. Okay. And Saturn's kind of suppressing and protecting and keeping everything under control. This could be an actual threat because the eighth house is like damaging information. So that's where I feel like this is a little bit, we're dealing with something that's a little bit traumatic here. So there might be some really big allegations. The other thing I want to point out about this interpretation is not only does this represent Prince Harry's book, which I'm speculating that this could represent Prince Harry's book, right? But also, I want you to be aware of this also could indicate a world emergency. So, not just a sense of necessarily Prince Harry's. In fact, who knows? Prince Harry's book could be little compared to what's going on. So I do feel like there's going to be some sort of emergency, and it could even be like a global emergency that's about to emerge. And he's king of England. So, King Charles is definitely going to have a say, or definitely going to be reacting to whatever's happening in the world as well. So the idea is there's some sort of catastrophic changes that are happening, and then King Charles is going to be in this sort of stasis, trying to contain what's happening. As many of you have seen in my other prediction videos, and this is a little bit, aside from King Charles's chart, but I do feel like we're going to be facing some sort of global emergency. This could be an economic emergency. There's definitely a feeling of some challenges in 2023. So I feel like this Saturn going through King Charles's eighth house could be something to do with that as well. So we could be seeing a lot of things happening at once. So I feel like this coronation is going to be bittersweet. It feels like it's going to be like really not necessarily an enjoyable time when I take a look at the chart, especially considering that emotionally, I mean, Venus, he's still going to be in this Venus period until July. It's in the sixth house, it's six from moon. So there is this idea of, the sixth house can represent a lot of worry, concern, difficulty. I don't necessarily see it as this emotional, even though it'd be a very proud moment of someone's life if you thought about it. Wow, you're being coronated king. It seems like it's bittersweet when I'm looking at the chart. It doesn't seem like a very enjoyable occasion. It feels like more of this responsibility that's being thrust on him. And there's a lot of things going on with this Saturn transiting to the eighth house. Now I know The Crown, when we look at the Netflix series The Crown, they kind of presented that, and I don't know if this is true in real life, but The Crown was presenting this story of almost King Charles in the past was trying to put out this idea of maybe the Queen should retire or something like that. And I don't know how true that is. Some of you can comment down below and let me see, or let me know what happened with that. But they did portray that he was kind of wondering if someone more in touch should take over the monarchy or something. That's what that was alluded to in the documentary. I don't necessarily see it, for them portraying him that way. I don't see it as that enjoyable of an experience, to be honest. When I look at the chart, it looks like somewhat of a stressful experience. And maybe he has a view, maybe he thought it was going to be like this amazing thing, but then he's realizing it's just really difficult time that he's going through. So that's what I see happening. In July, he's going to be entering the sun period in his chart. And if we take a look at sun, and we'll talk about that just for a moment, sun period, sun is associated with royalty. So there is this idea of being the king. Isn't that interesting? Right after coronation, now you're really the king. There's like an officiality about it, or it's like official, right? But I do feel like it's a difficult time to be king because of K2 being activated. And then the House of Leo is also being activated during this period. Saturn's being activated. So there's this heavy sense of responsibility. This is not really a fun time. I want you all to be aware of it. It's not really like, yay, it's super fun, like, like the Lion King. We just can't wait to be king type of situation. I do see it as a very serious situation. I think there's going to be some revelations that come out of this book. I do feel like there's going to be some sort of damage control mode that's going in. They may know a lot about what revelations are going to come out. So because of Saturn being in the eighth house is representing, like, they know what to do. They know how to contain the situation and whatnot. So that's what I got for you all concerning King Charles at the moment. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. And also, you guys are probably going to be answering the questions that I asked. Also, let me know if there's any other royal figures you would like me to look at their charts. As long as I have a birth time and there's enough interest, I can do other readings on other royals. So let me know. Thank you all for watching and take care of yourselves. And by the way, Happy New Year's. Happy 2023.